Comics Recapped here. Today I'm going to explain a comic called Possessive. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. "Welcome home," says the realtor. She introduced Todd to this large old house. The house looked as though nobody had occupied it for years and was in pretty bad shape. The realtor gave Todd a tour of the place. The interior was a mess. The walls and floor had holes in them. The sinks did not work. There was no electricity, and dust and termites filled the entire house. During the tour, Todd and the realtor passed the entrance to the attic, which was on the ceiling. Todd asked the realtor if they could look inside it, but the realtor told him that she couldn't open the attic since the pole used to open it was missing. Although Todd didn't like the place, he still bought it. Todd thought he'd fix it up himself, and more importantly, it was the only house he could afford. Later that day, Todd drove to his mother-in-law's house where his wife and kids were to tell them about the house he had bought. He sipped alcohol from its flask while going there. Todd arrived and was met by his wife, Jess. Jess was annoyed by Todd since he did not call to inform her that he was coming, and he reeked of booze. "You just can't stay sober, can you?" asked Jess. Todd denied drinking and insisted he had been sober for weeks now. Jess did not believe him. Todd showed Jess the house picture and told her what his plans were for it. Jess was not impressed and told Todd if he wanted her to change her mind about the divorce, he should start getting sober. Dejected, Todd went back to the house. He made his way to his room on the second floor. Todd lay on his bed and slept. The next day, Todd got up and decided to fix the broken steps on the stairs. Todd nailed pieces of wood over the broken steps, attempting to cover the holes. Unfortunately, he trampled upon a piece of wood that he used to cover a hole and fell down the stairs. Todd decided to call a repair company to have his house fixed. Todd searched through Yelp and called Bigelow, asking for his services. Bigelow had negative comments on Yelp, but Todd did not care as long as he was cheap. Bigelow arrived with two of his helpers. Todd led them inside the house and showed them what he wanted to be fixed. Being short on money, Todd offered one of his paintings to Bigelow as payment, but Bigelow denied it and told him he wanted to be paid in cash instead. Hearing this, Todd told Bigelow that he would be going out in hopes of finding a buyer for his paintings. As Todd left, Bigelow and his helpers stopped what they were doing and searched the house for valuable things. They were robbers. Bigelow found nothing of value and noticed the attic and thought to open and explore it. The three men entered the attic and immediately saw the gramophone. Bigelow was ecstatic. He thought he could sell this gramophone online for a hefty price. Bigelow tested the gramophone to know if it was still working, and much to his delight, it did. But when the three men turned around, they were surprised to see a woman floating in the air, dressed in old-fashioned clothing with a face that was half normal, half grotesque. It was a ghost. The men screamed, but the ghost grabbed one of the helpers, stuffed his head right in her mouth, and ate it. Bigelow and the remaining helper ran, but they were caught and met with the same fate. Meanwhile, Todd was in a cafe downtown trying to sell his painting but with no luck. Disappointed, Todd went back to his house drunk. Upon entering, he was surprised that the house was in worse shape than when he left. "I'm going to give a bad review on Yelp," Todd yelled. Later, Todd made his way to his studio where he attempted to paint, but Todd was too drunk. He passed out and collapsed on the floor. While Todd was sleeping on the floor, Bigelow opened the door to the attic. Bigelow was bleeding all over his body, and he slowly crawled out of the attic. Bigelow crawled his way to Todd's sleeping body to ask for help. When he was a few inches away, the ghost went after Bigelow and grabbed him by the neck. The ghost then used her arm to pierce through Bigelow's chest, which splattered blood all over the room and eventually killed and ate Bigelow. Todd woke up the next day. Todd saw all the red splatter in the room and dismissed it as paint thrown when he collapsed. Todd heard a knock on the front door. When he opened it, Todd was surprised to see Jess. Jess gave Todd an envelope containing the divorce papers that he needed to sign. This hurt Todd. He did not want to sign the papers since he did not want to be divorced. But Jess insisted that Todd signs the documents for them to get it over with and move on with their lives. Todd took the envelope and told Jess he would sign it later. Jess left and went on her way. Todd went back inside and heard a thudding sound coming from the attic. Todd wanted to see what was making that sound, so he took the pole and opened the attic. To his horror, the ghost emerged and went at him. Todd ran as fast as possible, making his way outside the house. Surprisingly, the ghost stopped at the doorway. This gave Todd the idea that the ghost could not step foot outside the house. Todd approached the ghost. He told the ghost that there was no way she was chasing him out of his own house again and pointed his finger at the face of the ghost. The ghost then bit the finger right off his hand. Todd let out a scream and fell to the ground. The next day, the realtor arrived. Todd told her he wanted to sell the house immediately since she did not tell him that an angry ghost inhabited the house. The realtor told him that she thought Todd already knew about the ghost as the 2 killings happened inside the house a century ago. Todd was enraged. He told the realtor he would sue her for not disclosing all the details about the house. The realtor told Todd that she knew of his financial troubles and knew that he couldn't afford a lawyer. The realtor left, and Todd drove his way to the pawn shop. Todd pawned his ring in exchange for a loaded revolver. Todd went back home that night. He took his revolver and shoved it in his mouth, wanting to end everything, but he couldn't. He was afraid. Frustrated at himself, Todd had an idea that he should offer himself up to the ghost and let her kill him. Todd summoned the ghost by calling her awful names and throwing liquor at the attic door. The ghost emerged, and Todd was ready to die, but surprisingly, the ghost ignored him and returned to the attic. Later that night, Todd decided to go to bed when he heard glass breaking in the kitchen. Todd went to investigate it and saw the ghost throwing his liquor bottles. Enraged, Todd told the ghost this wouldn't stop him from drinking. Todd ordered liquor online. The delivery man arrived with his drinks. As soon as the delivery man stepped into the house, the ghost flew to him and cut him in half. The liquor bottles fell and broke. Furious, Todd went to the church and asked the priest for an exorcism. Todd told him the situation, and the priest agreed to help. The priest arrived that night and entered the house. The priest threw holy water and said incantations around the house. The ghost flew towards him and bit his neck when he came near the attic. Todd tried to help but was too late. The ghost then dragged the priest's body up the attic and shut the door. The next day, Todd went to the public library and asked the librarian for any documents that had information about the house he bought. The librarian looked concerned and showed Todd newspaper articles showing him what happened inside that house a century ago. Before the librarian left, she told Todd the only solution to his problem was to burn the house. That night, Todd told the ghost he knew her history. Todd said the ghost's husband was a drunkard and accused her of having an affair. The ghost was locked in the attic for months while being tortured. Todd told her that he knew she killed her husband out of self-defense and knew her name was Catherine. Todd screamed that he would not allow the ghost to portray her frustrations on him because he was not her husband. Todd left and went to his bedroom to try and sleep. Todd woke up in the middle of the night and to his horror saw Catherine at a corner in his ceiling staring at him while he slept. "Get out!" Todd screamed. Unable to sleep, Todd went to his studio to paint. Todd was painting a picture of the house when he noticed Catherine was looking at his painting while smiling. Todd asked if Catherine liked the image, to which she nodded. The next day, Todd was having breakfast while looking at his old family photos on his tablet. Catherine saw this, took Todd's tablet and smashed it to the ground. Todd was surprised but understood Catherine's actions and told her, "You're right, no more living in the past." Later, Todd drove to his mother-in-law's house to give Jess the signed divorce papers. Jess was surprised to see him look sober. "You look good," said Jess. Todd thanked her and said he'd been sober for the past few days. After giving her the papers, Todd left and went back home. That night, Todd and Catherine started fixing the house and rearranging its furniture. The cracks, dust, and spider webs were all gone. Todd decorated the wall with some of his paintings. Todd also shaved his beard and fixed his appearance. Todd continued painting and now used Catherine as his muse in his paintings. Todd told Catherine he had uploaded his paintings on Instagram and had been invited to an art gallery for him to display his paintings. Todd thanked Catherine and told her she helped him get sober, fix his house, and become a better man. Todd then left to go to the art gallery. After entertaining some guests, Todd went home. He turned on the TV and watched his favorite show with Catherine. They both had a good time in each other's company. Todd was surprised that Catherine was inviting him inside the attic when they headed to the second floor, since everyone who entered the attic had died. Catherine insisted, and Todd obliged. Inside the attic, with the music played, the scars on Catherine's face were gone. Todd approached Catherine and asked her to dance. The two danced the night away, and before they knew it, the two shared a kiss, and they had made love to each other. The next day, Todd woke up with Catherine in his bed. There was a sense of awkwardness between the two because of what had happened the night before. Todd heard a knock on the door, and he went to check who it was. To his surprise, it was Jess. Jess told Todd that she felt terrible for what had happened between them and saw Todd's effort to change. Jess asked Todd if he was still willing to give their relationship another chance. Todd said yes. They hugged it out, and Jess told Todd she wanted a tour of their new house. Todd was feeling anxious and told Jess that now was not a good time to tour the house, but Jess was persistent, so she had her way. Nervously, Todd toured Jess around the first floor of the house. Jess saw Todd's paintings and asked him who the witch was in all his paintings. Todd told her it was nobody and he just made it in his imagination. Jess was impressed with what she saw and told Todd to give her a second floor tour. Todd was hesitating. Jess noticed and asked Todd if he was hiding something. Todd denied this, but Jess did not believe him. Jess barged to the second floor and went inside Todd's room. To Todd's relief, Catherine was no longer there. Jess was happy with what Todd had done with the house and told him she would be moving in with their kids next weekend. Todd agreed and escorted Jess to her car. After Jess left, Todd went inside to break up with Catherine. Todd saw Catherine dangling in the living room chandelier. Catherine angrily flew towards him. Todd told Catherine that he appreciated everything she had done for him, but it was time to end things. Catherine let out tears of blood. Todd told her it was time to move on and focus on herself. But Catherine did not take this well. She lifted Todd by his collar and threw him out the window, landing on his car. In pain, Todd went downtown to look for a rabbi to ask for advice. After explaining what had happened and his situation, the rabbi told Todd that he was dealing with a dybbuk. The rabbi said that the dybbuk was a possessive spirit that latched onto a specific item on Earth and won't let go. And the only way to get rid of a dybbuk is to destroy the things that dybbuk was latching onto. Todd immediately identified the gramophone as the item that Catherine was holding onto. Todd thanked the rabbi and left. Later that night, Todd returned to the house carrying a teddy bear and balloon as a peace offering. Todd entered the basement to talk to Catherine. Todd told Catherine he was sorry and did not mean what he said that morning. Todd told Catherine that they should dance to patch things up. Todd made his way towards the gramophone, but instead of playing music, he picked it up and threw it out the window, destroying it. Did it work? Todd asked himself. He looked around to see if Catherine was still present, but she was not. Todd celebrated. He then went outside the house and took the gramophone to a nearby quarry and threw it there. Later that weekend, Jess and the kids finally moved in with Todd at the house. The family was overjoyed they were together again. After they had eaten their dinner, Todd told his kids to go to their rooms as it was already their bedtime. Todd and Jess decided to get intimate with one another in their room. But before they could start, their daughter knocked on their door and told them she had a nightmare of a woman strangling her. Todd escorted her back to her room and told her it was just a bad dream, and nothing terrible would happen to her. Before Todd could go out of his daughter's room, his son approached him, saying he had a nightmare of a woman taking him inside the attic and strangling him there. Todd took his son back to his room and told him there was nothing that would hurt him and that he was having a bad dream because it was his first night in a new house. Todd returned to his room with Jess and the couple continued what they had started, when Todd suddenly saw Catherine in the corner of the ceiling staring at him angrily. Todd screamed, which surprised Jess. Jess was confused, so Todd told her everything. Jess did not believe Todd and decided to leave him since she felt Todd was making stories to hide that he had another woman. Todd kept telling Jess to get the kids and get out of the house. When Jess reached her daughter's room, she yelled. Todd rushed to the scene and saw Catherine strangling his daughter. Todd took out his phone and played Catherine's favorite song. He then threw his phone inside the attic, and Catherine followed it. Todd quickly evacuated his family and took them inside his car. Todd realized that it was not the gramophone Catherine was latched to, it was the entire house. Todd poured gasoline outside the perimeter of the house. Once finished, he made a Molotov cocktail, lit it up, and threw it toward the house, causing it to go up in flames. The house was destroyed, but Catherine did not vanish. She has now latched onto a new item, Todd's paintings.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.